Hall of Famer that he is, John McClain. Boy, it's great to have him every week right here on Tuesdays around 5:30. John, thank you for your time. There's a lot to get to, NFL trade deadline, also Baylor football. But are you dressed up in your Larry Dierker throwback jersey for World Series?
No, I couldn't get in it if I tried, but I am ready for the World Series. You know, it was easy for players to have a rain out. They're used to it. They're locked in on the game. But for fans, even though we knew it was a good chance it was going to get postponed, you get excited about it. I went to the first two games courtesy of Mattress Mac, my boss at GallerySports.com, and I was ready for that one. Now I've got a decision to make Thursday night. I should be at NRG Stadium writing about the Texans and the Phillies. And it dawned on me today, I write more columns on the Astros for GallerySports.com than the Texans. So I think what I'm going to do, one of the reasons I retired from the Houston Chronicle, I didn't want to travel anymore to all the games. Just got tired of it. So I watch games on TV, cover it off TV. I write a column or a report card, and then later do a 45-minute podcast. So I am going to stay home, and I'm going to watch the Astros, and then I'm going to stream the Texans on my laptop, and it'll be just the same as if I'm there. That game against the unbeaten Eagles, it'll be over in the second quarter, and I don't know how many Texans fans will be there. I feel sorry for those Eagle fans who bought tickets thinking, okay, we're going to be there on Thursday, and then if the Phillies don't sweep in Philadelphia, we can stay over and get tickets for the World Series. Now, I think there'll be a lot of Eagles fans at that game making a lot of noise. But if you look in the stands, you'll see them looking down because they're going to be looking at their cell phones. They're going to be watching the World Series while they're inside NRG Stadium watching the unbeaten Eagles.
John, what do you think about tonight's matchup?
I wrote a column on GallerySports.com about all the people in Philadelphia and the national media are trying to act like the crowd at Citizens Bank Park is better than anybody. That's what they said in Seattle, where they went 21 years without the playoffs, how fired up and loud it is. Well, you know what? It was, and they got swept by the Astros. And then they say, well, the Phillies are unbeaten at home in the postseason. You know what? The Astros were too until the Phillies beat them 6-5 in the first game. So they have faced every kind of anger, vengeance, whatever you want to call it, in L.A., New York, Boston, and there's nothing Citizens Bank Park is going to do to have an effect on this game. Lance McCullers is pitching on the road for the third time, first time Seattle, second time Yankee Stadium, and so they become used to it. Usually the louder they boo Jose Altuve, the better he plays.
John, T.J. Hawkinson is now a Viking. Calvin Ridley is suspended, but a Jaguar. Bradley Chubb's a Dolphin. And more, Jeffrey Wilson's a Dolphin as well. A lot of activity today in the NFL. What were maybe a couple things that are most top of mind and stood out most to you?
People wonder why are so many trades made now. It's because he moved the deadline back. And by moving the deadline back, they had a record 10 trades on deadline day. And the reason they moved it back and there are more deals, teams have a better idea. Are they going to go to the Super Bowl? Are they going to go to the playoffs? Are they going to have a high pick? So you see teams jockeying for position to make trades to get veterans they think can put them in the playoffs, win a division, or help them go to the Super Bowl, while the teams that don't think they're going to do that, they're thinking about the draft. And the team that everybody's most disappointed with was Green Bay not adding a receiver like Kadarius Toney, who went to Kansas City, or Chase Claypool went to Chicago. But that's the way the Packers operate. They're not deadline deal teams. And but it was interesting. The biggest name was Bradley Chubb. Last year of his contract, he hasn't played a full season since his rookie year of 18 because of injuries. And they gave up a lot for a guy that had trouble consistently staying healthy. But when he is healthy, he's very, very good. Miami has a great offense. To me, now they're trying to bolster their pass rush. I thought that was a really good deal for them. And thought it was a smart deal because they're trying to get to the Super Bowl.
Did the Texans try to trade Brandon Cooks?
They had teams calling. One of the problems was, most people don't know this, there's a deadline on Monday. If you don't make a trade by that deadline, any deal that is made after that, the team that requires a player gets his whole contract. So I'm reading today and seeing on TV, well, the Texans are going to trade Brandon Cooks. Nobody wants to take his $18 million guaranteed contract next year, so the Texans are going to have to pay a chunk of that. No, that's not the case. Because of that rule, it's been in place and just people don't know about it. If they had traded Brandon Cooks, their best receiver, their second best receiver, Nico Collins, is out with a groin injury, might miss several more games. The starting receivers for Davis Mills would have been Philip Dorsett and Chris Moore, two veteran journeymen who generally don't do much. And you're trying to hope Mills improves. 2 weeks ago, he played his best game and lost to the Raiders. Sunday, he played the second worst game of his career. He was awful. The offense was awful. The run defense was terrible. And it was one of the worst performances I've seen by a professional team in Houston since I left Waco for the Houston Chronicle in 1976.
John, what was going on with Brandon Cooks?
Brandon is the least controversial person I've ever covered. Really nice guy. And he wanted to be traded. Well, who wouldn't want to be traded out this team? Everybody would. He's never said anything remotely controversial. 3 minutes after the deadline, he put a tweet out. Everybody's talking about, they overestimated him being a nice guy. And he's been covering for the lies, and we're wondering what that is. And so he'll have to talk to the media after the game Thursday night. Now, he shouldn't be complaining too much. He just signed a 2-year, $36 million contract that pays him $18 million guaranteed next year. If it was in their best interest, they would have traded him. If it's not, and it wasn't, he didn't get traded. Wait till off season and try again.
You mentioned what you do now with what you're doing with GallerySports.com and also Houston, the 610. Are you actually, you're supposed to be retired, and I know you came out of it. Are you actually working more now than you did before you retired?
I retired from the Houston Chronicle after 47 years for 3 reasons. Number one, I was doing 15 things a week, mostly columns, 5 columns and a bunch of other things. And some of them I just got tired of doing all the time. Also, I kept my pension. And after being there 47 years, it's pretty good. And I started taking Social Security. But I always knew I was going to still do all my radio shows. And then Mattress Mac called me and asked me if I'd be interested in working for him. And I said, I don't know anything about selling furniture. He said, well, I got an idea I think make us a lot of money. And I said, well, you already got a lot of money. He said, well, you can never have enough. So it was to start a sports website. And we did GallerySports.com, which there's no paywall. It's free, like he's in all his commercials down here. Buy $4,000 worth of furniture, and if the Astros win the World Series, it's free. So they go out and buy over $10 million worth of furniture. So if the Astros win, he gets $75 million. He can pay all that furniture back. If the Astros lose and he's out $10 million on that bet, he's not out anything because people bought over $10 million in furniture.
Yeah, he's got it going. John McClain, your Baylor Bears going to Lubbock. It was kind of a dicey the week, and it was like kind of nervous energy because they hadn't really put together a full game. And my goodness, in Lubbock, they put one, and it was a woodshed in many ways, although it got a little bit dicey in the late third quarter. Your thoughts about what you saw from Baylor in Lubbock?
First of all, Richard Reese, when he runs, now he's a lot smaller, about 35 pounds than Walter Abercrombie was as a freshman. But Walter had great game at A&M and Rice, and we knew Walter was going to be special as a freshman. Well, we know this guy's going to be special. He already is. And the interceptions, the turnovers were what excited me the most. We went to the World Series, courtesy of Mattress Mac, 2 nights in a row. My good friend Lester Zinn, whom you know, took his tablet. We had a table overlooking the bullpen where we got waited on, and we watched Baylor and Tech on the tablet. We couldn't hear squat, of course, So we watched everything in that game. Then I came home where I taped it. I was so tired, but I stayed up and watched it again, and it was so much fun. And but the schedule is going to get tough at Texas, at Oklahoma. Do they play at Kansas State or get them in Waco?
That's a home game.
Lubbock, they play home this week, on the road against Oklahoma, home against Kansas State, and then TCU, and then on the road against Texas.
Yeah, it's going to those road games, Oklahoma, Texas. I don't care how those teams are ranked or anything. Those are tough trips, as you guys know. But it's great. You go back, losing that game at BYU at overtime, double overtime, and then 42-40, I think it was, at West Virginia. And I don't mind them losing to Oklahoma State. They should have lost that game. But, man, they should have one loss right now.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
There's John McClain, GallerySports.com, 610 Sports Radio. You talk